Hi, I'm Stan Voelkel, and I've been doing a series of videos on how companies are reacting differently to pre-COVID, now to post or during COVID, because we're still probably right in the middle of it. And so I've tried to reach out to business leaders and people who I know and try and get their perspective as to how things have changed for them and how they deal with their clients. So with that being said, I've got Carl Luke today. He's the CEO of Global Business Builders. He is a business consultant and executive coach. So welcome, Carl. And with that, tell me a little bit about you and how you got here today.
Hey, Stan, fantastic day to you. Thank you. And, what got us into a conversation was my book, Mondays Reimagined, Master Your Monday, Win the Week. And, one of the things that's powerful for us is if we can connect our story to our leadership brand, to our expertise. And that's kind of what I've done in my book. And my expertise is Monday mornings, or Mondays especially, and especially Mondays mornings. So how I got here, I've had 6 businesses of my own, and I've done a lot of consulting with other businesses to build their business. There's usually working in the business, working on the business, and working on yourself. I'm most fascinated with the people working on themselves as they take on an adventure to achieve a big goal. I really help people reliably achieve big goals faster.
Part of the concept of the book that you've written is Mondays Reimagined. Tell me a little bit about how you got to write the book, and secondly, how has people's way of dealing with their Mondays changed, because they're now at home, whereas before they were in the office. So I can imagine it's really changed things quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the reason I got involved in writing Mondays Reimagined, which is a recent release, it came out May 4th this year. May the 4th be with you. It's based on as I said, my personal story was how much I hated Mondays, and a shocking 75% or more of people are hating or dreading Mondays. Dreading Mondays, go on their way to work, dreading Mondays being at work. And how you start the week sets the week. Also more powerful to realize is that a lot of that dreading starts setting in on Sundays. So if you work all week and then you have, you go home on Friday and you're just, decompressing from your week, and then Saturday you have a little time off, and then Sunday you actually are starting to build that heaviness again and that dread. And I'm very familiar with that. And I spent, I would say, probably a couple of decades of my life really feeling a heaviness about Monday, because there was just so many things about it that were a conflict for me. The work I was doing, the people I was with, what I was accomplishing, and so forth. So I'm very familiar with the Mondays, and so I created that book, Mondays Reimagined, on that concept.
So in the COVID era, how are people dealing, with their being at home and having all the distractions and just probably getting off track so early in the week, and then the rest of their week they're playing catch up, and it's just a problem?
Well, absolutely, and can you imagine, at least before COVID, we would have 2 different environments we were involved in, right? At home and at work. And now it's all, for many people, it's all one place. I mean, let's just say that as a generalization. Most people are working from home now. In general. So, there's really no time off, either as a parent, if you have children, or as a business owner or an executive or an employee. There's really no time off from either roles. And so the stress, the frustration, the anxiety of the unknowns, and just seeking to define kind of a new view for this new situation is a real challenge. Huge challenge. So anxiety is definitely up, frustration's up, and if you're talking about 75% or more people were dreading Mondays, well now, almost every day probably feels like a Monday for 24 hours. So you got 7 Mondays a week now.
Yeah, exactly. No, the being home, having the kids, having, like, I've got 2 kids that are 11 and 13, and they're now just started back in school, so it's making sure everything's going right there, making sure they're on their calls, all that sort of thing. So it definitely adds to the problems. And I know for me, it's really easy to get kind of off track. And if I get off track, I'm playing catch up. And so if you screw up your Monday, it really, I guess you can talk about this later, but maybe starting Sunday to kind of plan your week and follow that. if you can do that, it'll probably help you out quite a bit. So tell me a little bit about the how-to, like what are the things that people can do to make sure that their week just doesn't get messed up in the beginning and messes up the whole week?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, the one thing right away is that the frame of reference should change for us. The frame of reference is no longer getting back to the way things were, because that's either unlikely or impossible at best. You know, it's unlikely things are going to get, or unlikely at best, and impossible is also the chance that it's going to be ever back to the same. So a new frame of reference is needed, right? So a frame of reference of how do I sort of redefine, reimagine my week, reinvent my life, reinvent a new perspective. You know, one of my backgrounds is photography, and so in photography, we reframe the familiar. So, you know, how do we reframe or reimagine ourselves now with what we're into? And so I have a little acronym called BLT: breakaway, look up, and be at the top. So breakaway. So the normal automated kind of living we were used to before COVID, or in a routine that we had, which has now been disrupted, we have to realize we're breaking away from that. And we have a new reference to see our life. And so you have to break away, and all the familiar things probably need to be appreciated in a new, different way, a new perspective. So for instance, look for wins. We need to now look for wins. We need to break away from what's dragging us down, draining us down, taking our positivity, and focus on wins. Usually we don't. We spend 10 times more energy on mistakes or difficulties, challenges, problems than any kind of focusing on wins. So break away from the routine, start focusing on wins, and look up. Look up is, you know, what's a new view, a new vision for my life? I spoke about that a minute ago. And you know, without vision, the past does predict the future. So you want to have sort of a new vision. You know, you're at home with your children, so how do you turn that into a new opportunity? You know, it's a businessman's, it's an entrepreneur and an executive's mindset anyways, to look for new opportunities, and that's very true now. It's just that the pieces are different, or the components are different. You know, having your family involved in your business now, perhaps setting a time of day where you take a nap, and all the family takes a nap, if that's possible. You know, or that you phone a friend, you phone some friends at say noon every day to sort of get some new energy, new input, new positivity into your day. And so, and look up, you know, start creating your own vision. One of the things you can do right away is going back to wins is there was a Navy SEAL admiral that talked about making your bed every morning, right?
Right.
You remember that, Stan?
Yeah, I've read the book. It's a short book, but it's definitely good. I was just thinking about that when you were talking about that.
Okay, perfect. So that's going back to breakaway and focus on wins. So you can have a win when you're being win oriented. You can have a win before you even get out of bed, and that's very important. Get out of bed right away. Get out of bed before the dread hits your head. So that's your first win. Not just making the bed as a win, but even just getting out of bed right away, quick, before that dread hits your head. That's
right.
a win. Look up now. What is it you want to accomplish? Starting on Sundays, start looking on Sundays what it is you see for the week. You know, because this is really a battle between the automated versions of ourselves and the mind over matter free will version of ourselves. We have to now manage our minds more. We
right.
have to manage our minds and our lives more. And to take control of that, this BLT is a mnemonic for that. Break away with look at wins, look up, create your vision. What do you want to accomplish this week? And there's two ways of looking at vision, right? You want to fuel two different aspects of yourself: the being who you are already aspect, and the becoming aspect. And most people focus only on the becoming. You know, they're always going for something, doing for something, do, you know, driving to gain something, a goal, do, and that, you know, doing for something. That's perfect. And if you also want to balance your who you are version, and it's even more important now to balance that who you are version, because you probably are a father or a mother or a the sole breadwinner or whatever it is. Who are you outside of what you do? Do you have empathy? What is your leadership brand, your style? Empathy,
Mhm.
collaboration, relationship. That kind of vision needs to be explored more and defined more now in these times. That's the look up. And we learn so much when we look up, right? Because when we look up, we see farther. And when we look up, we see more. And when we look down, we're always just focused on what's close and reacting in the circumstances. But if we look up, we can bring a little bit of balance to the continuous doing version of ourselves.
Right.
And the T, Stan, is the top. Be at the top. What is the greatest version of yourself? Every new level requires a new version. And the version I will have you look at, here's a challenge, is remember and reflect on this. This is your highest performing version of yourself. Remember and reflect on something you accomplished that you had thought was impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Reflect on that, and that's the being at the top. Accomplish the impossible version of yourself.
Right.
There's just a few thoughts on BLT.
Yeah. So with regard to your week, so let's just go back to Sunday night. So are you suggesting, maybe you have a written calendar for the week and you probably have some tasks within that calendar.
Yeah.
So you're saying, definitely write it down, because if you write it down or have it on your computer, it'll be visualized. But you're saying actually taking a little bit higher, an additional step above that to really kind of visualize in a certain way how the week's going to play out. Is that part of what you mean?
Absolutely. That's part of look up, having a vision.
Yeah.
So when you look at your week from Sunday, it gives you a little bit of, it empowers you more, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not just reacting to your Monday. When Monday comes, you're not just reacting to it. You already have stepped into it, and you feel you're managing that mindset, as if you will, about your week. And as I said earlier, how you set your week or how you start your week can set your week, and let it start your week powerfully. In fact, set some of your boldest goals on Monday.
Right.
Some of your boldest goals. It's kind of like a runner. When they go up, some runners, they slow down or they pace themselves going up a hill, and some run harder to get it up and get it over with. And that's what I suggest.
Right.
Through that. And then you can, everything you accomplish. And then again, remember those wins. Every one of them you get is a win.
Yeah.
And if you just become win oriented, that's a shift from problem only oriented.
Right.
And when you write down your goals, here's some things to keep in mind. One is write down your goal, but also write down who you're going to be to accomplish that goal.
Mm-hmm.
I am being powerful. I am being energized. I am being empowered. I am being influential. Think of it as the title of your book. The title of a book sets the tone for the book.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't mean like set it as war and remembrance. I don't mean to look at it as a conflict week, but, something bold, unleashing your greatness, unleashing the giant, I am going to be unleashed. I'm going to be uncontained, undaunted. Set that for yourself as your being part of your component of yourself, as well as set the doing what the goal is.
Right.
And the other thing to keep in mind is you've got to go ahead right away and face, and most people don't, what are you going to do when it fails? So create your contingency plan.
Yeah.
Right away. Go ahead and, plan on failure.
Right.
And how you're going to recover yourself and who you're going to be as you recover to accomplish that goal.
Right. It's funny you talk about failures. It's, all of the really successful people in the world, they say that they've had just a ton of failures, and it's just the reason why they become successful is that they just don't give up.
And that's so true. Thank you, Stan. That's amazing. Like, I was standing in DMV one time, and I'm over 50. And there was a young man there, 16 years old. He was telling about his family and his family business. He was trying to get his license for the first time. And he's like, I started chatting with him. It was a long line. It was like an hour-long line. So I started chatting with him. And he asked me, Stan, he said, can you give me, I told him a little bit about me. He said, can you give me some suggestions about my business? I don't want to work in my family business because it's just too crazy. He says, I want to start my own business. And I said that to him. I said, you just never give up.
Right. Right. No, that's absolutely true. Just looking forward, I know that once again, my weeks they can just get sidetracked just because of something gets in the way. So tell me, what is a strategy or a game plan for dealing with those things that are unexpected that pop up that you have to deal with. How would you deal with something like that?
Yeah. So, you know, we have to practice. We have to learn how to practice from how to shift. We have to learn the practice of shifting from reactive to intentional. So that's part of why you plan for failure, because then you know what your plan B is. So when something does pop up unexpected, how are you gonna deal with that? That's what you're asking. So you know, who you might have somebody you can call. You might have somebody that you can call to calm you down, give you perspective. You might have an executive coach.
Mm-hmm.
You might have an assistant that's on standby for unexpected things. And there are a lot of unexpected things these days, man. You know, it's just a different framework that we're living in. So that would be another idea. Another idea would be to say no. Learn to say no. You know, a lot of people
Hard to do. It's hard to do sometimes.
absolutely. You know, and another way of saying that is I'm not committed to that right now. And that just means it's important you recognize and the other person feels heard and the other person feels validated,
Mm-hmm.
but you're just saying you're not taking action on that right now.
Yeah.
And set another time for it. And you could even schedule a text message to yourself a week from now, or write it down in your calendar a week ahead. Get back to this thing. Remember, and when you set your goals for the week, I would say set maybe 3 top priority goals. You don't want to set 200 goals. You want to set like top 3.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing you can do to understand how much your day is reactive versus intentional is do a daily audit. Do an audit of your day. Let's say today's Thursday. Let's say Thursday last week. Audit that day. Go look at your calendar and whatever, or audit yesterday. It has to be something you're not planning that you didn't plan the day that you're going to audit. It has to be kind of a regular day. And what's in there that really helps you. Now, here's one thing. Here's 2 or 3 things to be more productive. One is we have an obsession with being right. Okay, so we want to, there's so many things that we engage in that have really no bearing on our lives just to prove ourselves or, show up or try to be right. Mm-hmm. But if it really gains you nothing and really in the end is just a conversation and doesn't change the circumstances, who cares?
Right.
So stop talking so much endlessly about things that are just debate.
Right.
Walk away from it, That's a way to get back some time. And another thing is to turn your phone off. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but I don't mean all day. I mean at strategic times, like 7 to 8 in the morning when you're planning or scheduling your day or strategizing your day. Another thing would be discipline makes things easier, right? People, I mean, I have 2 boys.
Yeah.
So, I know that discipline is seen as a, kind of a negative, but it's not. It's like that admiral, of the SEALs guy who just said, make your bed. You've got your first accomplishment of the day.
Right.
And I'm saying get out of bed, and learn discipline, because discipline actually puts things on an easy path instead of having to recalculate and re-examine everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know where you're going and what you're doing. So there's a couple of ideas.
Yeah.
How's that stand?
No, that's great. So one of the he's written a book. He has a podcast as well. His name is Jocko Willink, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Anyways, he's a Navy SEAL, but he also does. He has talked about, I think his book is entitled maybe Discipline or something like that. But basically, he talks about how being disciplined makes your life a lot easier, even though it may seem like it'd make it much more difficult.
Yeah.
And here's another way of thinking about this, kind of along the same lines, and that is basically if you do the hard things first, your life is easy, as opposed to doing the easy things first and everything else is difficult.
Yeah. So and that's typical, right? That's why things get procrastination. That's where procrastination comes from, is because you push it off, and it becomes this big snowball, this big furry, hairy ball of string to deal with, and so it's justified even more not to take it on. So, I agree, and we're saying something the same way, something similar, which is take on the tough stuff first. Muhammad Ali, I think it was, said, ride hard and rise high early in your life and live the rest of your life. I think it's Tom. And he said, what matters is how you feel about yourself when you're alone in a room. And that's what we're talking about. You're like, how do you feel about yourself when you're alone, all
Right.
by yourself in a room? And that, like, audit that, man. That's a great audit point.
Yeah.
So uh, if you have senses of accomplishment, not senses of routine and reacting and just managing the fires, that doesn't raise your sense of self,
Right.
right? But if you're intentional, and look, I'll do a lot of quotes. One of my quotes is, if your whole life is just reacting to circumstances, you're not living your whole life.
Right. That's actually a miserable way to lead your life, but I'm afraid a lot of people are probably, and maybe sometimes I am as well, doing it that way.
But you and I both know when we're around people that are powerful. They've and whatever, and however you want to measure that, their
Mhm.
security, their confidence, their finances, whatever. Uh, they have a certain resolve, a certain intentionality about them. They've sort of mastered the wild horses in their head,
Mhm.
and the stinking thinking and the monkey mind, like Zig Ziglar used to say. When you have a sense of self, you are operating from that higher, at the top version of yourself. If you look at default, the what's
Mhm.
possible version of yourself, and the accomplish the impossible version of yourself. And I gave a challenge earlier about reflect on, kind of another audit challenge was, reflect on something you accomplished that you had thought was impossible.
Yeah.
So, and we're operating from a sense of ourself and not just a sense of getting by, not just a sense of survival. We are here to explore ourselves, right? We're not here just to do the same thing, every month after month, like a groundhog life,
Mhm.
repeat, repeat, repeat.
Right.
We're here to really explore ourselves and challenge ourselves to the greatest version of ourselves. And Another way to audit, I've been talking a lot about that word. Another kind of thing to reflect on is, um, if are you making, here's kind of a litmus test of whether you're living circumstances or living intentionally. If if you're making small things big, then you're kind of living, by circumstances.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
the other thing is, if you are making small things big, then unfortunately you're making big things small.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
so so if you're making big things small, that's your dreams. That's your free will. That's your rising above the status quo. Those are your big things.
Right.
To that journey to your highest place. And so what you want to do is that's another way to kind of look at how things are going for yourself, sort of a self-test. And I also have another quiz about Mondays. If you'd like, I can kind of
Yeah.
talk.
Go ahead.
So, are you dreading Mondays? Let's take the quiz. There's 5 questions you can ask yourself. These are not the only questions, but here's 5. Are you financially successful, but something is missing? You know, you see, my leadership stand, just purely by my vision and purpose statement, is that I accelerate high achievers. I create peace, power, and prosperity by accelerating high achievers to significant success and wholehearted fulfillment. And that equation right there, significant success and wholehearted fulfillment, is not one people really balance. Sometimes they're fulfilled, but not significantly
Right.
successful. Sometimes they're
Absolutely.
successful, but not that fulfilled. So, are you financially successful, but something is missing? Then, if that's true, that's if that's a yes, then there's some risk that you're dreading Mondays. Number 2, have you lost your leadership edge? Stan, people come to me and they say, I've lost my edge. I've lost my leadership edge. I'm not engaged. I'm not as sharp. It happens.
Hmm.
And people get, like, burned out and beyond, drugs and alcohol and all that. So have you lost your leadership edge? That's a yes or no. Number 3, have you lost your passion? Now, a lot of times we start with a passion in our lives, and then we get a little bit more constrained and more conventional, and start feeling kind of locked in and trapped even.
Hmm.
Another one is, have you lost your creativity? This is huge because real problem solving takes a lot of creativity. A real leader needs a lot of creativity, vision, and creativity and strategy, right? I said earlier, working in your business, that's more the tactical. Working on your business, that's the strategy. And working on yourself, that's more your passion and your leadership. And listen, um, where analytical dead ends, creativity begins.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is where analytical dead ends, you begin, because
Right.
your uniqueness starts coming out.
Right.
So have you lost your passion? Number four, or okay, I may have missed something. Have you lost your creativity? Number four. And number five, have you lost who you are? So the thing is, for us to be extraordinary, we have to bring who we are into what we do. Simon Sinek calls it your why. Some
Yeah.
people
Right.
drifting around without knowing their why or their purpose or whatever. So there's 5 questions. Are you financially successful but something is missing? This is also my website, carlloop.com.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, have you lost your leadership edge? Have you lost your passion? Have you lost your creativity? Or have you lost who you are? So if you answered one yes to any of those questions, we're all human. It may be okay. 2 or 3, maybe is something to take a look at, right? We're talking about reimagining, right? Remember, we're in the world here of reimagining. We're not in the world of just repeating what we've already done. We're not in the world of trying to get back to the old normal. We're in the world of reimagining to a new place.
Right.
And so have you lost your passions? Number 3. Number 4, have you lost your creativity? Number 5, have you lost who you are?
Right.
So if you have 3 or more yeses to those, you're very likely dreading Mondays, and it's time to master your Monday and win your week.
Nice. Great. Well, with that being said, I think we've pretty well covered it. But I really appreciate your time. And Carl, well, I'm going to include all of the notes to like how to reach you down in the description below. So we don't need to say that right now. But really appreciate your time, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you, Stan. Really enjoyed it. Have a great week.
Thank you very much.